What's up, guys? Paul from Golfers Authority. Today, I have a legend. That's what I have to call him. I'm super excited. I think I was telling my wife this morning, I was like, guess who I get to interview this morning? And she's like, who? And I told her, and she's like, who's that? And I was like, that's okay. The golfing world knows who he is, and I know who he is. Honestly, he is a legend. Everybody knows who he is in the golf space. Today, I have Dean Snell of Snell Golf Balls. Super excited to have him on the show. I've been working with Snell for over a year now. We reviewed, the Get Some, the MTBs. So we love their balls. They're awesome. And I'm really happy to have Dean on the show. So without further ado, Mr. Dean Snell. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Appreciate it.
So where are you at today? You at your house? Looks like a house.
Yeah, I am. We just left the office. We go in early and do all the shipping labels, and we try to sign thank you note to the people, and then pack so everybody in the company participates in that, including myself.
Oh, that's cool.
So we go in early and pack, and then I have a home office here. I'm sitting actually in my kitchen right now because they're doing some landscape work at my house today in the front where my home office is, and they're making a lot of noise. So if you hear any trees being stumps being
cut down,
trees falling,
I hear guys see like timber in the background.
We're okay. We're in the back, so we're good. We're safe.
So whenever I talk to brands, I always want to kind of get to know the brand, right? That's like even my initial phone calls. And the question I always ask, and it's like the most open-ended question I always say, hey, what's your story, right? But, a lot of people know who you are, but I want to go through like just, how'd you start Snell? But even way back before, because I did some research on you, which I never really do on my guests because I already don't want to do that, but I want to sound dumb. So tell us like from the moment, how'd you get into golfing, first of all? What's your first golf memory?
My first golf in memory, which I couldn't stand golf when he'd watch it on TV. He's a very good player. He's passed away, but he was at the time he was a 1 or 2 handicap, and I was playing hockey out in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He came out to see me. We're from Massachusetts. He came out to see me. It was a Friday Sunday series that we had, and we had Saturday off. So he asked me. He said, "Hey, let's go rent some clubs and play golf." And I said, "Dad, I don't want to do that. It's not fun." I played. So he said, "Come on, let's go." So we pull up into the parking lot, and there's another group of people on the side of us. And he's like, "Okay, hurry up. We got to get in front of these guys." So I said, "See, already it's not fun. What are we rushing for? We have no rush." So we go in, I get a set of rental clubs. In the first hole, I take my first shot, and the ball just went so far to the right, I didn't even go get it. In the second hole, I hit it, same thing to the right, and the ball went in the woods. So I was up in the woods, and I'm looking for it, and he's out in the fairway, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden, I see this guy come down in the cart, drive up to him, and he's in my father's face, and they're going at it face to face.
Seriously?
And he gives him a little push. So I came running out of the woods. And this was back when I was a little thinner and in a little better shape. But I came out of the woods, and I ran across, and I clotheslined the guy. And we beat the shit out of the 2 guys on the second hole. I don't know if it was Hershey Country Club. It was one club out, and we beat the shit out of these guys on the second hole. And they come out and they threw us off the course.
He's like, I love this.
And I said, what was that all about? And he said, you were in the woods taking your time, and the guy behind him hit the ball, and it took one hop, and it hit my father in the leg. So my father was a big guy. He was an athlete, and he had no patience. So he grabbed a 3-wood, and he fired it back at him. So the guy didn't like it.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I think that is now the best story I've ever had on the show. I can't believe it's like your first memory of golf. Like usually people are like, "Oh, my dad took me," or my grandpa took me and I had fun. And yours is like, "Well, my dad took me and we kicked the shit out of these guys."
So a hockey player back then, so it was kind of fun. It was like, and I could kind of like golf. You can tie the 2 sport. It was going from one sport where you got a couple thousand people hollering and someone pisses you off, you take care of it, versus to a sport where you can't even talk or move when someone's trying to hit a ball that's not even moving. So there was a transition that was a little bit difficult going from hockey to golf, but hockey's still first passion, and golf is a close second now.
So do you still play hockey or no?
I don't anymore. No, I played after. I played in some pretty good men's leagues after I was done playing hockey for quite a few years, but I haven't. Probably about maybe 6 or 7 years since I've actually skated. I built a hockey rink in my backyard here 2 years
Really?
ago. I've got a net, a rink up in Mass, and it was tough to keep it smooth. So my wife made me throw the rink away. So we put a pool up instead.
Oh, it's hilarious. Actually, it's funny because there's a lot of hockey players that play golf, obviously. Another brand that I work with, one of the partners, which I didn't even know, is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. And I was like, seriously? And then I had a call with him, and he's like, yeah, I do. He owns a golf, him and another guy own a golf brand. I should introduce you to him because he's really cool. But yeah, he played for the Avalanche. Yeah. I mean, I think he'd geek out. I know he's pretty. But yeah, it's cool because I played hockey in high school, and then I played hockey even though I live in Arizona. But back then, Arizona wasn't really much of a hockey state. It was there was 3 rinks in the entire city. But it's interesting now because in the last 20 years, they built a couple more rinks, and there's actually really good players coming out of Arizona, which you would be surprised. But a lot of NHL players have retired in Scottsdale. So,
one of my best friends back here in Mass was the assistant coach for the Coyotes for a few years. He was not this past year, but the previous 2 years, he was assistant coach for Scotty Allen.
Oh, that's cool. So I love hockey. I wish I could get my kids into it, man.
I loved it.
It's just I love it because I don't know. I love hockey as probably as much as more than golf, and that's the truth. I love playing. It's it kicks your ass. You lose weight. I remember losing 6 pounds in one game. You skate so much. I don't know. I loved it. I loved it. I started late too. Cause I started at junior high because there was no ice rinks here, and so I mean, yeah, I miss it. Yeah. So these conversations go all over the place. So, so this is what I know. I know that you went to University of Mass, right, and to play hockey, and then you became an engineer. And I know. So tell me, how'd you go from going? I know your first job was at what, BF Goodrich, right?
Yes.
And so you're doing aerospace engineering. What were you doing there? Were you just doing design, or were you doing composites, or what were you working on?
Yeah, the degree that I got at UMass Lowell was a plastics engineering degree with a minor in chemistry and math. So I started working at BF Goodrich Aerospace and Defense in Marlborough, Mass. It was under A&M Engineering Composites, was a subsidiary of them. So we did a lot of design parts specifically for military. So I did a lot of work for the F-16 fighter planes. We designed the navigation pods that flew under the plane that would follow the pilot's eyes with the Gatling guns that would go on these pods. So it was a pretty cool project, but it was a lot of design work, turning metals to composites to make the planes lighter, be able to fly faster, and put more things on them. So the design side to it, but I was driving an hour from my house. I was actually from Acushnet, Mass, which is right where Titleist is.
Oh, yeah.
So I lived in Acushnet, which is a Acushnet company. Yeah, it's a Acushnet company. So I had answered an ad for at Titleist for a quality engineer's job just because I had an engineering degree and it was local. I didn't play golf, so they sent my resume.
You didn't care. You're like, hey, it's closer. I just want to not have to drive 2 hours a day.
Yeah, and it was for quality, so I could probably do that. So I sent it to them, but they had forwarded my resume over to R&D to take a look at, because I was doing R&D work and manufacturing work, in the composite side to it. So they sent the resume over. I think it was on a Friday, and then on a Tuesday they called back and made an offer. So I went into Titleist and joined the urethane team that urethane golf balls didn't exist. So they didn't have a process to do it. There was no manufacturing. It wasn't in the facility. We had a team of about 5 or 6, I think it was, people, a couple of chemists, a couple of engineers, a couple of technicians, and a machinist. And I try to say, how can you just a cavity, a single cavity that had dimples in it? If you take a mold apart, think about holding something like 3 inches by 3 inches in your hand and open it up, and the dimple cavities were in each half. And we had to say, how can you make this cast material that's not injection molded, make it into a golf ball over wound thread, which is what was used at the time, Torbolato at the time. So that's the project that I started with. That eventually went from taking one golf ball, so you inject the liquid into this cavity, and I took I have to center down into my hand, until it gelled up, pour the liquid in the other side, use the Q-tip, flip it over. I put it in a C-clamp, and then I took it to a cooler, a freezer, stuck it in the freezer for 20 minutes, took it out, opened it up, and there was a golf ball. It had air bubbles around it, but it had dimples on it, and the wound center was inside the cast urethane cover. That's how the whole cast urethane business got started. That went from one cavity to 12 to manufacturing to, multiple lines now. And the first ball that came out was the Titleist that we did was the Titleist Professional. So that was the first cast urethane golf ball. And the cover material we could cast very thin, but because it's a thermoset urethane, that liquid mixing together would cross-link and you couldn't pull it apart. So it became very durable. So remember, this was a time when Bellata was there where you'd hit a bad shot and you'd put a mark in the cover or you'd cut the thread underneath. Oh, yeah. So the Professional that it became eventually got launched as the Titleist Professional. That professional work that we did with the urethane, the engineering project started in 1990. That's when I was hired. And we launched the Professional in 95, I believe it was, 94, 95. It actually got launched first in Japan under a ball named Touristi, which was usually in Japan we try new technologies first because the volumes were small. It kicked off so well with the tour guys that we switched it over to the Titleist Professional pretty much just months after. So that was I'm going to say 95 is when that came out.
So is that when the Pro V1 came out officially, would you say?
No. So what happened with Pro V1 is, I don't know if you guys remember a ball named Strata from Top Flight.
Oh yeah, I remember that ball.
So what happened was Strata actually came out in the 94, 95 period, and the Professional was a wound golf ball. So we didn't have solid urethane golf balls at that time. Strata came out as a multi-layer solid Sirloin golf ball. So it was a soft Sirloin ball that spun a lot. It was a nice concept, but the cover was thick and the ball spun a lot. So the idea that I had after Professional was to say, what if we use this urethane cover, make a solid construction ball, but instead of the cover being very thick, we make it very thin to help eliminate that driver spin and make the ball go further. And the urethane's so durable, we can go thin with it versus the soft Sirloin. So actually, that's kind of where the name came from. The first prototypes that I made was using the Professional cover, and it was V, which was a veneer layer. So it was a thin cover layer, and it was the first prototype. So the Pro V1 came from the first kind of prototypes that I made to do that. And again, go out and see Phil and Peter Costas. That would have been in the 96 time period. And it was a nice. I mean, and remember this. There's a team that we have with it.
Yeah.
And kind of the lead engineer on the team to do the design work for it. But that's kind of the construction side to it. Process issues and things go on that need to be fixed on it. But the concept of it came out in the 95 time frame, 96 time frame of starting the development with it to try to make it work. And then it was launched in 2000. I believe in September or something with Billy Andrade, and when he won, I think in one of the events in September or something. So, but yeah, that's kind of where the Pro V1 evolution came from. It came from the Professional cover, solid multi-layer golf ball with a thin layer, and the first prototypes we made. And I made 3 different prototypes that had 3 different sizes of cores and mantles, and we changed the compressions and the hardness of the mantle layer and the flex modulus of the cover layer with different urethanes. So we narrowed that down to having 2 or 3 balls to take out to him. And there was another significant difference. So from Bellata to Professional, driver spins used to be 4,000. Now we took them to 3,500. And then from Professional to Pro V1, we took them down to 3,000. So taking 1,000 RPM to spin off the driver added significant distance. So the golfers, I can remember working with tour players with Professional, and they would have drivers turned down to 7, 8, 9 degrees. And now my last 18 years when I was at TaylorMade, the drivers are 9, 10, 11, 12 degrees, some of them. So the golf ball's spinning much less. The players launch it much higher. That's why they go a lot further today.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you went over to, you went to Titleist just because it was closer to your house, right? And you're like, I can do this. Yeah. And then you developed you're on a team, you led the team to develop, the technology that's pretty much almost in every ball now, right? Like everyone does their version of it. I mean, I didn't know all that. I mean, I remember the ball being spun. I remember as a kid, like finding, old balls in the lake or in the woods or something, and like it's all cracked and you see the inside of it. But I mean, I forgot, like I don't know when that changed, but I guess that makes sense because I was in college back then. But I mean, it's just crazy. That's crazy. So then,
Yeah.
I mean, so you were at Titleist for what, 7 years? 6 years, 7 years?
Yeah, I left Titleist at the end of '96 into '97. I didn't leave because I didn't like it. It was a great company. I'd gone through a little bit of tough times in my personal life, but both my parents had passed away that same year, and I'd gone through a divorce. So it was TaylorMade and Callaway were both looking, for people to start their ball division. They didn't have one. And I was basically employee number one with TaylorMade. To go out there and it was a good start. Titleist actually had a party for me. They weren't going to get into a matching type of deal with trying to keep people because there were a lot of people that they were looking at trying to get. So, so I gave it a shot. So that was, it was a pretty cool thing. It started when I walked into TaylorMade, they didn't even have a scale or anything to weigh a golf ball. So we had to build this business from ground zero, hired a team of chemists, hired a team of engineers, technicians. We bought a bunch of equipment. We built the R&D lab. We worked with a factory in Mississippi. Then we bought that factory in Mississippi. Eventually worked with Max Fly and Dunlop. We bought Max Fly and Dunlop. Eventually built another factory down in South Carolina. I built a factory out in Korea. We worked in Taiwan, in China, upgrading factories. So it was a big project that's covering the 18 years that I was there. But it's just a great company. Titleist and TaylorMade to me are two of the best companies in golf, and I was very fortunate to work at both of them. And have great friends at both of them till this day. So I was fortunate. Both of them treated me very well, and I have nothing but good things to say about them.
So did you have to move from Massachusetts then when you moved?
Yeah, I moved out to California. So I lived out in San Diego area, Carlsbad. I lived out there for 18 years. So
and then you missed Massachusetts.
I had family here, so I was traveling back and forth a lot. I spent a little bit of time. My family here too, so back and forth. Quite a bit. When in the beginning side to it, and then I was able to go week on, week off, kind of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, month on, month off. So TaylorMade was very good to. I did a lot
very
of work
flexible
with the tour players and the design work with these guys. Yeah, and most of it was on the East Coast. When the events kind of go on, so I'd go to the East Coast and I'd work with the guys during the week, and then I'd pop up on the weekend for family. Then I head back out there. So it was good, But a lot of time, spent a lot of time on the road. The tour guys are, they're interesting characters. Some of them I spent times that stayed at their homes and played tournaments with them, and some of them would just want you to come in and get out, So they were all different, but I still keep connected to a few of the
Greats.
guys that I'm very close with. And yes, Sergio and his family kind of welcomed me to their home, and I went out to Spain a couple of times to see him. Played in the tournament with him at his course, that he invited me to, his father, their house sits up on a hill looking down onto the course, and his mother runs the pro shop. His father's director of golf. His brother's assistant pro, and his brother's a pro soccer player that Sergio's a coach of. So we go to the golf course during the day, then we go to the soccer matches at night. Yeah, so just a good, and every time I see him, after that, I saw him a lot around the United States doing prototypes over the years. With 18 years, I worked with those guys. So
yeah,
good friends. Justin Rose, Day, and Sergio are probably three of my favorites that I still keep in touch with now.
It's kind of cool because you've grown with how the PGA has grown over the last 20 years, right? Because the athletes have changed before, now, I mean, nothing against how it was before, back before the 2000s. But I mean, when Tiger started, that's like when it really, you could see it became more of athletes, not guys that were good at golf, right? Like, and they started training for it. And then, it's kind of cool because a lot of these guys, are getting closer to the next level of the tour, right? Like, I mean, they're getting like mid to 40s. So they got 5 more years probably.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So then I mean, I guess you got to travel a ton, right? You're probably traveling to all the majors and then having them test the balls. But what I think is really cool is like when you went to TaylorMade, it was like a startup, right? I mean, you had the capital and you had a brand, a well-established brand, but like literally it was like having a startup all over again, right? And
Yeah,
so having to build a brand within a brand, but not have, yeah. I mean, so you had nobody, right? You're just like, we have to build a team, you guys, right?
I was just the guy that hired me and myself, and the guy that hired probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. Kind of was running the club side to it, so he kind of involved in it. He got his hands, he got his hands in it quite a bit. But as time grew, I was able to kind of take the ball side to it and work with the engineers and the manufacturer and teach them. And we bought factories and we rebuilt factories. Yeah, so travel was quite a bit. We'd spend 2 weeks at a time on the road, just work in factory to redo all their injection molding machines and redo their buffing machines and teach them how to paint, specs on paint and pad print and UV cure inks and all the things that go into golf balls. They're white, round, and roll in the ground. It's very simple, but it's a very complicated process to make sure you make it to the specs you're looking for when you kind of know what's happening and what works and what doesn't work. A lot of people try just to think of it for the core, which is the biggest part of the golf ball. People want to just say, make it softer. Well, when you make it softer, it expands and will blow apart an injection molding machine. So you have to work different kind of gates and venting on that to be able to make that even stay in a golf ball. Otherwise, it'll explode on you. Those in the cast urethane, we had air pockets around the cab where the two halves came together, and we couldn't solve it. It took us 6 months of R&D and engineering and design of experiments just to solve that little problem. Callaway actually went and tried to get into the cast urethane back in 2000 with a ball called Rule 35, and they had the same issue. They were making $40 million a quarter in scrap because they couldn't solve this issue that, for 6 months it took us to solve it at Titleist when I was there. So, and then they eventually got out of that kind of business because they couldn't figure out how to do it. So those little things become knowledge that becomes pretty powerful to be able to make something that can have an improvement in performance and make something be a little bit better. So when you start working with tour players, they're not looking for, hey, just make the ball go 20 yards longer. When I go see Sergio, we would work 30 yards, 15 yards, 30 yards from the green for 6-7 hours. And he would just hit shot after shot, watching how it would take that first hop and how far it would go. And then he'd say, okay, I see you in New York. Let's hit 4 wedges. Okay. And we just keep on tweaking until we finally got to something that from the 5-iron in was good. And then he would work the driver to adjust to the spin that we had. So when I started in golf, it was all driver distance. That's all we measured in 8-iron spin. And today, everybody starts at the green and works their way back. So
Really?
it's changed completely on how the tour players fit golf balls. Never mind what the amateurs should do, which they don't, but that's how amateurs should do their fittings too.
Work their way backwards from the ball.
At the green. The golf balls are different from 100 yards and in, and from the tee today, they're all very similar. I mean, we've figured out how to make spin rates of tour balladas be like pinnacles back in the 90s. Now today, tour balls and two-piece balls all spin very similar. So if you get your speed maxed out, you get your spin low, and you get your aerodynamics right, they all should go pretty good. All of them should go pretty much the same. But
Across
when
the
you start
board.
hitting, right across the board, 2-piece, 3-piece, 4-piece, 5-piece, they all should go similar off the drivers, but they're different now from 100 yards and in. And that's where your game, you want to test your game to make it better, is 170 and 60, 40-yard shots. That's where you save strokes off your score. And that's where golf balls are different today.
I never knew that. That's crazy. So if you're an amateur golfer, you should just assume, right, that all the balls are the same, right? Across the board off a driver. But if you're really trying to save strokes, you should really be looking at within 100 yards and how the ball acts within 100 yards of the shot.
Absolutely. So my fitting recommendation is, and it doesn't have to be brand specific, but if you are brand specific and you like a certain brand, everybody goes on these fitting things with a driver and they hit 3 shots and they go, wow, that ball went.
Oh, that ball's awesome. I got extra 10 yards on my drive. It's like big deal.
Keep hitting it and your next one will be 10 yards shorter. The deviation for average golfers, the deviation is huge. So, but when you hit a 100-yard shot in, your dispersion gets tighter so you can actually test it better. And you'll see some golf balls will fly higher or lower, have more spin, less spin, feel softer or firmer. And the closer you get to the green, you'll see those shots. So when I worked with, I used to do this experiment, which I demonstrated in front of the media multiple times, where I took a scratch golfer and I took the tour ball that we had at the time. I think it was Penta at the time. And then we took a noodle golf ball, a 2-piece golf ball, and I put a 100-yard shot on them. And the spin rate would be 10,000 RPMs on the Penta with the sand wedge, and it would be 5,000 RPMs on the noodle. And the launch angle would be about 10 degrees higher. So this is why tour players don't play low compression 2-piece balls, because the ball flies high with no spin and they don't have any control. But there's a lot of amateur golfers that just need to get the ball up in the air, and it's a win for them. So
they're happy. They're like, that's cool. Especially as they get older too. They're like, oh, awesome. I'm hitting the ball like I used to hit the ball.
Exactly. So that's how you want to go test. And I tell people, do it for 4 holes. Just go out to 100 yards, take 2 different models. And if you're a good player, take 2 different tour models against each other, so you'll see the difference in feel and spin. But if you're just trying to see what the difference is in golf balls, take that 100-yard shot 70-30. When the group comes behind you, go to the next 100 marker and do it again. And when the group comes behind you, do it again, and do it. Hit chips and putts. And when you walk off that 4th hole that you've done this test, you're going to say, geez, I like the way the ball felt, soft or firm, chipped high or low, checked or released. And if you can't tell the difference, then buy the cheapest one, because that's where your game's at. You're not there yet to be able to see, because this is where they are different. But if you can't tell it, then you're just wasting money until you get better in your game.
Because most golfers don't even understand, right? They buy they buy based on brand, right? They go, oh, I heard that's a good ball, or then the next thing is they say, if they do hit the ball in the net, or they go to whatever and try to figure out which ball, they try to find the one that goes the furthest. But then it's like, that's a wash, right? Because they're all the same. So whatever, I guess you want, like higher launch, or if you want not. But then if you're really trying to get better, these are like small wins, right? If you can figure out which ball to use within 100 yards, that's multiple strokes you could probably save per round just by finding the right ball for your game. I mean, really.
Yeah. You're not going to hit the tour ball and suck it back like the tour players do. So when I worked with the tour players, they would tell me, hey, I need you to take spin out of the 8-iron or the 9-iron or the wedge. I can't get to a back pin because the ball hits and pulls back, so I can't control it. So we take spin out of the shot for those guys in their design. When you work with average players, they need the spin in. So I know they go play the ball the tour players play. It may not be the best choice for them, but their criteria for what they ask for is different than what the amateur golfer needs in their criteria. So if you can add 1,000 RPMs of spin to your golf ball, remember I just told you the Penta was 10,000 and the noodle was 5,000. That's 5,000 different. If you can add 1,000, that stops the ball 5 feet closer on a wedge shot. So that might be one less 3-putt, or it might make you make birdie, but more spin around the green gives you more control. You won't ever suck it back, but you might stop it 5 or 10 feet shorter, which might help you on your next putt or eliminate a 3-putt, take shots off your game.
See, it's like I don't think most golfers don't realize that. I didn't. I mean, I know some of these things because I study it, but I don't think most people understand like the importance of finding the right ball for your game, right? Like they think, oh, I want a Pro V1 because that's what's used on a tour. Okay, well, here's a newsflash. I don't like Pro V1s because I can't hit them. Like I've never been able to hit it like ever. Sorry, Titleist. It's a great ball. And I know it's great for everybody. That's good, but not for me. I mean, but I found that out over years of playing and bad shots and being like, man, I bought a box for $50 and that was a waste of money. So, I mean, I'm not talking smack or anything, but that's like one of the reasons why I, built the site, my website, is because people don't know these things. They don't know about other ball brands. They don't know what's good, right? Like you walk into a big box retailer, you ask them, hey, what ball should I get? And there's a whole wall of balls, right? It's like, okay, which one's the prettiest? And they go, oh, Pro V1s are good. And it's like the guy who just started to play golf should not buy Pro V1s, right? Like, but that's what I believe. Yeah. So then what made you want to start Snell, and what year was that?
Well, my kids were in college, going through. I have 3 children. They were all going through college, or 2 of my boys are paramedics and firefighters, so they were going through their school classes. And my daughter was in a 4-year program, And I always wanted to say, if there was something to give back that you could give back, I was so fortunate to work with these players, have friends with them. They don't buy golf balls, but they're a huge part of the process of development. When Penta came upon the 5-layer Penta golf ball came because of the work I was doing with Jim Furyk. So Jim Furyk's the reason why I added a 5th layer into Penta. When I went to see him, he was saying this was when the rescue clubs were starting to come out, and he was saying, Dean, you got the golf ball spinning so low, these rescue clubs are carrying so far that in the air there's not enough spin to hold them in the air, and they're knuckling and falling out of the sky. So that's a tour player feedback on a rescue club that you never hear from an amateur golfer. They can't even hit a 4-iron or rescue the same twice. So what I did was we were able to model golf balls. When you hit a golf ball with a driver, it compresses the ball 1/3 the diameter. So you're well into the center of the ball. And as you work your way out with wedges, that gets less and less where it's just the cover. So we can control where the layers are based on the iron shot. So we found a nice material that gave us soft feel, but when that impacted that inside the ball shot, it added a little more spin for him, and it kept the ball in the air a little longer. And that's where the 5-layer came out. So the Penta golf ball worked very well for the high speed, high players that hit the ball far, and it kept it in the air longer for them, and it became a big success with the tour. That eventually went on to be lethal, then it went on to be TP5, TP5, TP5X. So that kind of construction came from working with them. When I was at TaylorMade, the focus at TaylorMade was always the driver. That's the core of their company. Like Titleist's core is the golf ball. And their club business was second. And TaylorMade, the ball business was always, second, maybe even third behind irons. So, the opportunity for me when I was going to leave and come back home, I was in San Diego, that opportunity kind of came up where, the timing was right. My kids were out of school. I could take a chance, and I've been fortunate. I think it's like 75 or 80, patents or patent applications that are U.S. patents or patent applications that are in with, I think, over 50 granted patents today. So using the knowledge over the years that I've been able to do, if I could take the best technologies of certain areas that I worked on and put them into something that would fit the average golfer, and give back to them. I thought about this direct-to-consumer business model, and the time seemed to be right. I wasn't on the fence anymore for a college education. The kids were finished. So I said, I'll give it a shot. Come back home and give it a shot. So
what year was that?
I started it in 2014. So in 2015 is when we launched it. So we launched it in February of 2015. So we're in our sixth season this year. And I did it with friends, family and friends, self-funded. A couple of friends gave me some money. When I did some design work, I had some balls made, I had them sent in. And then, when you buy them, when you have them made, you got to pay for them before you sell them. So, what I started with was to say, hey, if we can do this as a business where I want this to be educational for people, I want to be able to give back to the people. We don't cut any corners on materials. The cast urethane to the top of the line, that's what we use. The aerodynamic design fits the product that we're designing. The mantle is the fastest mantle material in golf, and the core is the fastest core in golf, based on the work that I've done for 30 years. So I put them together, and the golf ball becomes fast, low spin, and that's why it's long. And when it goes into these independent distance testing, it comes out right near the top all the time. Adding different levels of feel and spin is what we've done with the cast urethane. So making the golf ball, it's no cheaper to make our golf ball than it is to make Pro V1 or to make
the cost is the cost. Yeah, like that's not going to go away, right? Like every brand has to pay that cost because that's material and labor, right? So
you can cut costs by going to thermoplastic urethane.
Oh yeah,
you can cut costs by going to a cheaper core material or using a slower mantle material, and we didn't do that. So our cost to make is the same as the top tour balls. What we did was we've had 5 or 6 tour players call us to play the ball, and we respectfully declined. Say that doesn't fit our model. We direct to consumer. So if I don't have to pay for sales force to go, the margins for the retailers, the pros expenses, free golf balls to them, having somebody on tour every week, I took that whole savings and I don't take the money myself. It's passed back to the consumer. And in the shipping cost, if I
And it
get it
lowers the
cheaper,
price of the product because you're not spending that money to offset the money to
exactly,
the sale.
we send that right back to the consumer. And even our shipping costs, if people buy 2, 3, 4, 5 dozen in a value pack, our shipping cost goes down per dozen, and I
Yeah.
pass the savings back to the
The
consumer.
weight and the shipping cost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I heard the story. Like, I know the guys on the tour have used your ball, but I don't know who told me this, but this, you can tell me if it's true or not. Like, guys on the tour have used your ball, but not on the tour, right? And they're like blown away by the ball, and they come to you and say, and the only way they got the ball is they had to have bought it, right? It wasn't like it was given to them, like, hey, check it out. And so I've heard that guys from the tour have come to you and said, hey, we want you to sponsor us. And you're like, nope, not gonna do it. You guys can buy my balls and use them if you want, but I'm not gonna sponsor you. Is that true?
It's a little bit of it. Most of it's true. The fact that we have had them call, their agents call and want to play it on tours is true. The fact that we respectfully declined is true. I did tell them if they do want to use it for free, I'll give you an example.
Yeah. I'm not paying you guys to use my ball. Like, my ball's good. I already know my ball's good. So if you want to use a good ball, you guys can use my ball. But I'm not going to pay you to use my ball.
Well, he says to me, boy, he says, I hit it further, I do this, I do that. And then he wanted $250,000 a year. And he said he'll get 10 more guys. I said, well, that's $2.5 million I have to pay. But I said, if you really think it's that good and that much better than the Titleist ball you're playing, you have putts for $250,000. So use it and win, and you make more money.
You make a lot more money, because if you start winning, then you're gonna make a ton more money.
Yeah. That's kind of where I didn't tell them they couldn't use it, but I did tell them that.
Yeah, you're like, well, you could use it for free, and I'm not going to pay you, or you could buy your own Snell ball and use it that way too. But I think that's awesome. That's when I first started really I mean, I heard about you guys, and then I was like, holy shit, this guy's a badass, because that's what a lot of amateur players want, right? They want the little guy saying, no, I already make you a good product, just use it. That's kind of what one of the problems is with the industry is everybody wants to get paid to use something that's, well, if it's good, then why do you need to get paid for it? It's going to help you win, right? I don't know. That's just my little soapbox moment. But so then 2015, you got some seed money from some friends. You had and yourself. You guys said, hey, let's all do this. 50 patents. I don't think people understand the patents you have are some of the most powerful patents in golf, right? If you read what product that patent went on, you're like, holy crap, I've heard of that ball, I've heard of that ball, I've heard of that ball. So imagine you guys 30 years of golf ball technology knowledge in his brain, right? And the patents behind it. And then he makes a ball, his own ball, and says, I'm gonna make direct to consumer. I know there's a lot of direct to consumer brands out there that have some innovations. That's cool, but some don't, right? They think I can get a ball made in China for whatever, and I'm going to pass that savings on to you, which is not much of a savings because they're buying a cheap ass ball. So, but with Snell, it's a lot different because you're actually the person who's developed these balls over 30 years for all the top names, right? I mean, is making a ball for the consumer, which no one's done that yet, right? Until he came along. So that's why I think it's so cool, because I don't know, you don't see that happening, right? And to you, it's probably fun, right? Because you've already done startups. In a way, you've done your startup, even when you were at TaylorMade. That was a startup. I mean, that's my opinion. It wasn't your startup, but it was, because you had to build those infrastructures in place. And then, I don't think there's anybody else like you in golf, to be honest. I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, there are the direct-to-consumer companies, you're right, that are out there. Some of them have some nice products that they make. This separates us from it, as we do have a little bit of history and a little authenticity and a little bit of the engineering design. The R&D work we do, we're making prototypes right now. We're in our third iteration of the next generation. So we make them, they come in, we test them, we make changes, we test them. We're in our third one now. And that's all based off feedback from your consumers, the customers that we have. I have a piece of paper on my desk, and I get up early and I read all the blogs and all the reviews and stuff on the golf ball. And then I write notes down on there where someone will say, geez, I like this butt. I like this butt. Geez, I like this. It's great. This is great. This is great. And I put the pros and cons comments on this paper. And when a box, someone might say, flies too high, flies too high, flies too high, spins too much, too firm. And that fills up a box. That's a voice from the customer. We take that voice and we start our prototypes to try to say, how can we make improvements to the two golf balls that we have that listen to the customer feedback that we're getting. So I stay in contact with our customers through emails, through a lot of direct messages on some of these other sites that people, send things over to us.
Yeah.
We read them. We have a review process that we have with the marketing team, and they put the reviews together. The people write them in, they're read, and then we get the feedback. They go on this chart, and then we start our prototype. So it's. I spent my first 25 years listening to the tour players say what we want, and now we're spending the next 5 years listen to the consumer say what they want, and their needs are different. So we address those needs based on consumer feedback.
So would you ever make a tour ball? Like a purely tour ball. I know, like I like the black, right? The MTV black. That's an awesome ball. But like, or that's not really what you're thinking. Like, are you like, well, I don't care. I mean, because tour players are not your demographic, even though they could definitely use your ball and it'd be just as good, right? Like, or if not better. But would you ever be like, okay, this is our own purely tour level ball, or is that something you guys would ever do?
Well, the ironic part is that with the two models we have, and these people coming and asking us to play it,
Yeah.
we do have tour golf balls, and I separate those spin rates out between black and X and the feel out.
Yeah.
So tour players could and did and played and asked would want to play the golf balls. So these golf balls, they could be used on tour
today,
probably by anybody that's playing on tour. They could compete. My Golf Spy did a big test. It was an independent test that they did. They tested every golf ball, and they put ours into the tour ball category.
Oh,
and
yeah, I remember that.
The fastest ball speed. It won the longest distance with driver. But what I look at is now that's nice because I expect that to be that way. We make them fast, we make them long, so we got the distance part of it down. But I look at now. Go look at the numbers they had on the 7-iron and the wedges, and then look at the tour numbers, and they're right in that category when they tested at the faster speeds. The faster speeds are what the tour players have, obviously. So this golf ball fits right into any tour golf ball that's out there today, and it's half the price. It's cast urethane cover, it's durable, it's long, it spins, it spins around the green with the check, and then these tour players call us to play it. So the validity of the golf ball, and as a TaylorMade, I always used to listen to the marketing guys, and I would say, hey, telling somebody a ball's 100 RPMs, more spin or less, is who cares? But when Justin Rose plays and wins the US Open with the ball that him and I worked together to design, that's the validation as an engineer. That's the validation that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah,
it shows that it works, So I know the golf ball works based on the testing we have. I see it in the independent testing, and then we're passing the savings back to the consumer. To try to,
which is so cool. Yeah, it could just cut. I mean, you're cutting all the crap, right? You're saying, look, all that money I would have to spend to get the ball on TV, right? Really, all that. I mean, tons and tons of money. I'm going to pass it back on to the consumer. I'm going to give you a tour quality ball for 30 or 40% less than what it'd be if we had to advertise, right, quote unquote, by having a tour player.
No, we do it. This is our advertisement. We do these interviews, and we do the word of mouth, and then one person tells someone,
you have a lot of fans. Let me tell you, like I made a video last fall, right? I made a top 10 list, right, of the best golf balls of 19, right, and I had the red on it, and I've been yelled at probably at least 5 times from people saying they quit making that ball in 2018. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, all right, I know that it still made my list because back in 2019, you could still buy it. It wasn't just off the face of the earth. I literally had a comment like in the last probably 2-3 days from somebody. It's an old video. And I'm like, I know it doesn't. So it's like people know your balls. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, they quit making that. Like they're all mad, right? They're very defensive. And I think that's cool because they care about Snell and they care about your balls and they care about your products. And it's like, I don't know. I was like, oh shit. I remember Jason, like when I showed him the video, Jason's like, we quit making that ball in 2018 or whatever. We quit selling it. I was like, I know that. It's like everybody's like telling me this. So I'm like, don't worry. I'm making a new video for 2020. You guys just relax. Like I'm not going to have the red on there, but I mean, so was the first ball you did like to get some, or what ball was the first ball? I don't even remember.
The first ball we did in 2015 was a 3-piece cast urethane ball. One was called it was written out tour ball, and that was really named for you. You have the ball. It's my tour ball. Like it's mine to play. It's not the PGA's tour balls. It's your tour ball. So we kind of had a little fun with the name side to it, and then a lot of people thought the name looked too long on the stamp. Again, feedback from consumers. So we changed it to MTB, and we put alignment arrows on it. And then what we were hearing from feedback was, okay, the ball's good, but it's maybe a little too soft. I need it to be a little bit firmer. So we made the MTB red, and that was a 4-piece thermoplastic urethane. And we got on the cover feeling different, looking a different white, spinning a little too much, for faster ball speed players, which it did. It spun a lot. So we changed that back to a 3-piece cast urethane firmer MTB X. So now we changed the MTB to MTB Black, and then we changed the MTB Red to MTB X. So now we have two, very high-end cast urethane tour balls that are differentiated by feel, where the Black is a little softer feel than X. The driver spins are very similar. And then the full iron spins, your 9-iron pitching wedge, A wedge, sand wedge into the green. The X is a little bit more than Black. So if it's a high spin player, we kind of put them more towards Black. And if it's someone who's looking to add spin, we kind of move them a little bit towards X. So there's a choice between the two.
So, and the price difference is nothing, right? Same price. So it's just like, that's what's cool. It's not like, oh, you want that, it costs you $5 more. It's like, no, they're the same price. Just what kind of player are you? Then this is the ball that you should be buying, right? Based on
our price, in all honesty, our prices in 6 years have actually. So we have two things that we did. We sold a dozen golf balls for $31.99 when we launched it, and then right now the single, because our shipping costs have gone up, because we pay free shipping, so we pay the shipping to everybody, but the ball cost has gone up based on materials and labor for over 6 years. The shipping cost has gone up, so that $31.99 price now, if you buy 2 dozen instead of 1, it's only $30.99. And if we go up to a value pack, which is 5 dozen, that's $28.99. So the price of the golf balls, our number one seller is the 5 dozen value pack, and right behind it is the single dozen test pack. So we created a test pack that has 2 sleeves of each ball in it, with a card that tells you that testing from 100 yards in. I tell you how to do the test. Goes in the box with the 2 sleeves, and that's a different way to test. When people give away 2 ball sleeves or 1 sleeve of balls and they hit 2 bad shots, the ball stinks and they never test it. So if you can get 6 golf balls and go 100 yards and in multiple holes, you get a feel for the ball and see which one you like in the test pack. And then our value packs, which is our 5 dozen in an order, that's our number one seller. So when people test the ball, they like it, they come back and they get the 5 dozen, which is only $28.99 a dozen at that point, with free 2 days express shipping.
I mean, that's the price point is so perfect because you're including free shipping, and the shipping alone on 5 pack or even a single. I mean, that's pretty expensive. It's heavy. It's balls, right? So, I mean, you got to built into the price. That's the other thing too, right? You could be charging $37.99, right, for the same thing if you because you're like, well, it could cost so much for us to ship it. So it's like even at $32.99, like you've already included that price with the shipping, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, and we drop because the shipping per dozen of multiple dozens brings it down a little bit. We pass that savings back to the consumer. So instead of the $32.99 single dozen, if it's 5 dozen order, it's $28.99. That's $20 savings. Which is $4 a dozen.
That's a lot. Yeah. I mean, I love Snell balls. I think they're awesome. I mean, it's like this. I feel like with Snell, and this is my own personal opinion, it's like the momentum's building up behind it, right? Every year, and it's like there's plenty of validation, there's plenty of history there, but it's like I didn't know the things you're talking about. I didn't know any of it, right? So it's like you are always, because you're an engineer by heart, right? So you're always refining the ball based on consumer feedback. Same thing you did with tour players, right? So like in your mind, you already know like what's the perfect ball for a tour player because you spent 30 years developing that ball, and you already kind of know. I mean, you already know what's good for an amateur, but now you're refining the amateur ball, which no one's ever done because no one ever cared about the amateur, right? It was like, oh, this was on the tour, you guys should buy it. You'll be a good golfer. That's not necessarily true, right? So I don't know of any other real. I don't know of any other real brands that doing that. I think they're selling. I know brands are doing innovative stuff with balls that I've talked to and I work with. I think they're cool in their own way, but I don't know of any brands that are constantly refining the ball to be a better ball for the amateur player. I don't think anybody else does that. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, adding like somebody had asked me the other day, why don't you have a 5-wear ball like you did at TaylorMade? And the answer is what I just explained earlier. The 5 wears in the golf ball was for the tour players. It was to try to add spin on rescue clubs when they hit the golf ball 140 miles an hour with a rescue club. Which average golfers can't hit.
It would never happen in a million years with me or anybody else.
The average golfer is going to get better the closer they get to the green. They're not going to get better with a rescue club. They're going to get better with wedges, having spin in the golf ball. So what other companies have done, you say, oh, you're an average golfer, you don't want to spend 50 cents on a ball. You should pay this. You should pay $30 for this golf ball because it's a low spin, softer, more compressed. You'll compress it, it'll go further, which is a bunch of crap. So if that's the way they sell it, they put you into a golf ball that's low compression, low spin, and now you're going the opposite way to make you better. Because the closer you get to the green, you're losing performance. So if I could say, let me give you the tour technology that's going to help you the closer you get to the green, but don't make it $52 a dozen. This is going to help you get better. And that's the difference between what they sell for $30 to tell people it's made for them versus what I sell for $30 to tell people it is made for them.
What's crazy is if you buy like a 2-pack, if you buy like multiple packs, right, it's cheaper, right? So you almost can buy 2 boxes for the price of 1 box and your performance is equal to, if not better, right? Because those balls are only made for up to less than 100 yards from the pin, right?
I said, you're right. If this low compression thing that everybody tries to tell slow swing speed players need low compression golf balls is one of my biggest pet peeves in golf because they're telling people now it's softer so you can compress the ball. It's going to go further. Well, it's number one, it's not. And number two, if it's going to compress more, it's going to have faster ball speed. So if you could add 1 mile an hour ball speed, which you probably won't, but if you could, you add about 10 inches to the perfect drive. So at that swing speed. So you're not really doing anything for them, but because you went so soft and low compression in the golf ball, you've taken all the spin out of the ball. Now, when you get up to the wedges and around the green, you're hitting shots that hit and roll to the back of the green versus hit and stop. So you're adding distance spin to the shot and you're taking away performance. So your thought of being better off the tee isn't really true. And now everything, when you get inside 100 yards, you've lost a lot of it for you, which is not.
So what about these balls that are like $20 a dozen? You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these new brands that are coming out. Like, what are those balls then? Just like 2-layer cheap balls, or what are like? I mean, really? I don't really know.
A lot of them are. A lot of the $20. I mean, we have to get some, which is $14 a dozen in the value pack. There's a lot of people that just want to play golf a few times a year for fun. They play in a scramble. They get in a charity event. They don't care. They don't want to spend. They don't even want to spend $30. They're not going to tell a difference in it. So make something that the lower spin balls fly a little higher. Gets in here a little easier, enjoy it. You don't lose $50 when you play. So we use our lowest price model, the Get Some model. We use that a lot for charity tournaments where people put custom logos on them to hand out sleeves to them. Because that's kind of what's in those tournaments. If you're playing for fun, it's charity, it's to raise money.
I'm just happy to get some balls. I mean, but the Get Some balls are a good ball. So what is that? How many layers is the Get Some?
It's 2 layers. It's a core and a cover. And that's made on the softer side, with the cover being a little bit thicker and softer. So there is a little bit of spin when you hit an iron shot versus some of these other very low compression balls, but it falls into the same category. They get similar. They don't have the performance of the cast urethane golf balls the closer you get to the green, but they do have a place out in the market for a lot of people that look to do those kind of, once or twice, a month, maybe don't really care, don't need to keep score, just play and enjoy the game and have fun. They kind of fit that category.
Yeah. So those are like, if you buy the 5-pack, they're 14. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize it was that much. So it's like you buy them new. If you buy 1 box, it's $21, but if you buy 5, it's $80. It's like,
correct. Yeah.
That's a good deal, especially if you don't play that much, or you just like, you know what? I'm not going to spend that much money on a golf ball. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't want to spend that money on the golf ball.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a nice feeling.
It all depends on the player, right? And what they want to do with it. That's what it comes down to.
So the biggest part is if you're like a Pro V1 or TP5 or Chrome Soft feel, that would be the MTB Black. And then if it's and it's based on feel. So if someone's more of I want it to be a little bit firmer, a little more feedback, a little more clicky sound to it, like the Pro V1X or Chrome Soft X or TP5X kind of fits in that category as well. And then we change the spin rate. So your approach shot spin, your 9 pitching wedge, A wedge, sand wedge, the X is a little bit more spin than the Black. So for some of the lower spinning players that wanted to, I usually say if you play Pro V1 and the ball hits and stops where it stops, that would be Black. If it hits and that would be X. If it hits and pulls back, that would be Black, because the Pro V1 is a higher spinning golf ball than some of the other tour balls out there. So a lot of people play it as a reference. So if you hit a shot and it hits and releases, then play the X. If it hits and pulls back, then play the Black. That's the level of difference in spin.
So are you guys, you're saying earlier that you're in the process of doing another kind of ball, like you're working on the balls right now. So is there any plans to come out with a new ball design, and a whole new line, or are you just going to refine the lines that you have right now?
Yeah, there's some plans to do a couple different things. The feedback from the current models that we have is sheets of fault, so we do have some good feedback on it.
Yeah, that's good.
The COVID, in all fairness, the COVID has slowed things down a lot. Getting things made, some of the factories were shut down. Some of the testing facilities that we use were actually closed, so it's kind of slowed it down. But we're in a good spot right now because the Black and the X are in there. They're not even through 2-year cycle right now, and they were doing very well, and more word of mouth spreading. So we average probably 50 to 60% new customers per year. So our customer base is growing. We grew 300% the first year, and then 60% and 50% over the last couple of years. This year will be a little bit smaller only because of COVID and things were shut down. It's spreading, and it's going because a lot of new people are coming in and trying the balls for the first time. So we're not in we need to change the product today, which is okay. We're in a thing where a lot of new people are playing and creating new customers. So we do have things in the works. Third iteration is actually on its way in right now. So when we launch that is to be determined. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Having packaging and things
everything,
like that, the USG emissions and a lot of stuff, the factory, the shipments, the timing, production, the material ordering. So a lot of goes into it to make a plan for it. It takes probably a good 6 to 8 months to do that. So that's where we're at right now.
There's like no rush to do it right now, right? It's because it's already September. COVID's, people are still rebounding from COVID, right? The industry is. I know a lot of brands couldn't get their product right for a long time, and they're starting to finally get it in. I know a lot of people doing like pre-sales and pre-order and all that too to keep it going. You guys you guys are in a good place because I love Snell. I honestly do. I think you guys make amazing balls. They're cool.
We get up at 5:30 and I go into the office and I print all the packing slips and labels myself.
That's
and then
so cool.
If I'm in the office, I'll write a thank you note to thank you, Paul, for thank you, Don, thank you, whatever, to whoever it is, to them. And we get a lot of feedback from the customers, that they appreciate that. It's not every single time, but it's probably 90% of them that I be able to do if I'm there. And then my wife comes in and works with me, and we got our marketing team and our customer service team. That we turn the phones on at 9 so that they come in early, and then everybody goes out and we all pack. The whole company packs all the golf balls, and then FedEx comes in. There's some days we have FedEx come in twice to pick up a sweep truck to get the orders, and then come in another time later in the afternoon, based on the time.
It's so cool. I do none of that. Like, it's so cool because it's a startup. It really is, even though like you're who you are. Right?
You want to talk about startup? I'll tell you how it started, which is so one of my good friends, him and I kind of said, well, we'll start this little business up. He owned a cesspool company. So basically, he's a shit pumper, and and had Porta John Company, right? So I don't have an office. We talked to one of his good friends, and I became friends with him, after. And he said, I have a warehouse for you. It's up on the third floor of this building. There's a loading dock if you want it. Just take it to get started. So it was somebody gave us. So he said, well, I have an office where my Porta John Company is, where the cesspool company is, and there's 2 offices there. And I had my daughter-in-law is my office manager. She handles my customer service team. So she was my only employee. So I said, okay, this is your office, so she would walk through all the shit pumping trucks and go into work every morning, like sideways to squeeze through them up into this little mezzanine, and she'd sit up top. So I would go to that office early, print the things, and I'd drive over to the warehouse, and my buddy and I would pack the orders, and we'd set them up, and then UPS, at the time was UPS, now we use FedEx. They would come in and pick it up at 4:30, and then the next day we do the same thing. So then this floor, we were ordering golf balls, and we didn't know if we were going to fall through the floor because it had steel plates on it. It was an old mill. So I bought a building, and we moved we hired a marketing group and a digital marketing manager. We started to hire some people and customer service team. So we bought a building, and it had a garage on the side. So we'd have our offices in the front, and on the side was a garage. We'd all go in the garage, pack, open up the door, FedEx would back in, and then we'd shut the door and go back to our office area. And we outgrew that building to another move, which we went into an 8,000 square foot building, which had an office,
Wow.
simulator, and a warehouse in the back.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of outgrew that, and we just moved in June. Now we're in a 17,000 square foot building that has a big office area and a big warehouse and a simulator room, and room for us to continue to grow. So we've moved like 5 times in 5 years, based on.
That shows you the growth, right? Like that's what you want. Like you're still not at the ship pumping place, right? Like you're not doing like 1 order a day, right? Like, oh yeah. And it's like, oh my God, it's hilarious. So you just moved again. So you have a 5th building now. Are you gonna move? You're not gonna move again, are you?
No. Well, this building has some room for us. So we have 17,000 square feet. We have an option for another 4,000 square foot warehouse that's attached to it if we want to. We just renovated the whole office area up front for the staff up front. And then that group goes in the back, and our families would help us. My daughter was working there for a while. My 2 boys would come in for a while. And my kids would go in and do some work for a while. And then we have a marketing team and a customer service team. And one of my good buddies was our IT guy for a while. And we've expanded that out. So it's going pretty good. And it's fun. We put music on in the morning. The team comes out, and it's, what'd you guys do this weekend? What'd you do? It's tell stories, and some people sing, some aren't very good at it. But they just have a good time, just have a good time in the morning, and then on Mondays, because we don't work on Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday orders get shipped Monday. We go right up to probably 2:00 we finish. So we buy for the whole team and the whole company basically, and eat. So Christmas in July for them, that my wife for the group.
I want to come work for you.
I told the people it's not going to be this cutthroat corporate kind of thing. We want it to be fun, and it's family friends. So people need to go do something with their family, or something comes up. It's okay, go. We'll survive, and we enjoy it. Don't abuse it, but we enjoy it. So
yeah, at the end of the day, it's like right? Like you don't need to make it like corporate America and weird. Yeah. But that's why you're able to grow so fast too, because I know a lot of things with corporate America are dying, right? I mean, that's just like a lot of brands have a lot of overhead and a lot of stuff in place, and that's not helping them right now, right? And it's like by being nimble, right? Because you're, a small to mid-sized brand, which you're able to be nimble and make and you can make the decision on what you're going to do. It doesn't have to go up the chain, and how's that going to, affect things and whatever. I mean, that sounds really cool. I mean, that's awesome. I love, this is the best part about the show is when you hear about this, my favorite brands that I love talking to are the mid to small brands that are killing it, because people don't understand, like they're still small brands, you guys, like they really are. Like they might look like it, but I mean, it's a family business.
When COVID hit, everybody, Massachusetts shut down for 3 months. So we we had to send all the employees home. So my wife and I did everything. We went, did all the stuff in the morning, and then we packed it all. FedEx came.
Oh my
We had,
gosh.
we had to take care of everything. So I didn't really get to sign the slips then because it was going to be too much, and we weren't going to be there all day. But we told the employees, don't worry, you go home, and they did some work at home. Little to
What
some
they
work.
could, yeah, what they could
Yeah,
do.
it's hard to do, because part of their role was to be there, and be part of the
All
whole
hands on
thing.
deck. Yeah.
And when they weren't there, that made us be there a little longer. But we told them, don't worry, that they were safe, and we make sure they got paid first. And when they came back in, they come back. When we haven't had a person leave yet, and we've added people, so we're doing okay.
You guys are doing the right thing. I mean, honestly, I think you guys are gonna where you're at now. I think even 5 years from now, you're gonna be way more bigger. Honestly, I honestly believe it because you guys make a very high quality product, but then it's like you're doing it the right way. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I think a lot of people don't do it the right way. They look for ways to cut corners. They look for ways to sell a cheap ass product. Get it from China or wherever and put their mark on it. I don't know. I don't know. I see the big brands have to watch out. That's what I think. I thought that 2 years ago when I first started talking to you guys. I'm like, this is the real deal. So, and I was super excited to have you on the show because I am a fan and I know of you. Let's put it that way. But I never had a chance to ever talk to you because usually I talk to Jason. So on your team, but I really do appreciate you coming on today. I love your stories. I'd love for you to come back sometime. That'd be awesome. I think you seriously have one of the best, if not the best story I've heard so far about how you remember the first memory of golf. Like I'm being honest on that.
It's only happened all the time. So
it's like I mean, all I remember from when I was a kid is my dad yelling at me when we would play golf, like, "Oh, you're doing it wrong," and I'm like, well, thank you again, and you guys. Seriously, Snell is an amazing brand. You have to check them out. You're going to get a high quality ball for a fair price and it will help your game, no doubt. You have 30 years of golf ball technology, built in these balls, but now is actually made for somebody that actually needs it. And so I would highly, highly recommend checking it out. I'd do the test sleeve and do what Dean's saying, because then you'll know. That's another thing too, right? Like no brands do that. They don't say, oh yeah, get a test sleeve of Pro V1s. They're like, no, go buy my $52 box of Pro V1s and see if they help you. But thanks again. And I appreciate it.
All righty. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.